So here we are, folks, in the site of Shiloh, Tel Shiloh. A tel is a word that was created in Hebrew, and it's used worldwide when we talk about archaeology. A tel is an artificial mount that is built from layers of ruins from different periods of time. Let me explain. Here in Israel, the material that we have so much of is stone. Stone everywhere. If it's tough stone, limestone, softer limestone, basalt stone, volcanic stone, sandstone, we have it all. Yeah? And that's the material that was used for building in ancient times as well as today. So in ancient times, when you would build a kingdom or a city, it would be from stone. And then enemies came and destroyed it, so you have layers of ruins. But it's always easier and cheaper to flatten out the ruins and build above it than to clear everything out and build from scratch. So you have a layer of ruins, and then you build the new kingdom upon it. And then that one is destroyed, so you have already 2 layers of ruins. And then the third, and the fourth, and this. You got the idea. A mount of archaeology of ruins. In Israel, we have a lot of sand and dust storms coming from the east, coming from the south. So it doesn't take too much time. I'm talking about years, tens of years, until the whole mount of archaeology is covered with soil. Kind of looks like a natural hill or a mountain. And with the wind come seeds that are planted on the mount. A tree here, a bush there. It looks natural. That's a tel. We are now on Tel Shiloh. Now, more than 3,000 years ago, when the tribes were led by Moses to enter the promised land, upon Mount Sinai, the Lord spoke to Moses, telling him, just before receiving the 10 Commandments, to build a tabernacle, a place of dwelling for God. And they did so. The directions were very, very clear. And then as they moved throughout the desert area, remember, for 40 years, the tabernacle moved from one point to another, until eventually they entered the land, crossing through the Jordan River, northern to the Dead Sea, opposite to Jericho. And as they entered, they settled in their first camp area, where they built the tabernacle, the first one, inside the promised land, which would be in Gilgal. During the time of their conquest, they went around the land, and eventually the tabernacle settled permanently here in Shiloh. Here the tabernacle dwelled, existed for 369 years. It's amazing. And this will be our tour. The first real big, long settling of the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant in the Promised Land. Here, family, is a good example of a tel, just as I described it before. The hill is archaeology built from layers from different periods of time. In 1838, a man called Edward Robinson wandered around this land, and he came upon a spring called Spring Shiloh. And he told himself this could be the place. The thing is, folks, that throughout the years, the Muslims, the Arabs that lived here in this land, they kept the traditional, ancient, biblical, historical names of the cities around us. It's unbelievable. We learn so much from the ancient names that were kept throughout the years. How do we come upon an archaeological site? Well, sometimes by luck. Sometimes you just stumble into it, into cut rocks that give you an idea, well, this could be a place. This could be an archaeological site. Of course, by ancient names that are kept throughout the years, books around the world of pilgrims coming here to the land, and above all, scriptures. In Judges 21, verse 19, it gives us the location of Shiloh. And it says, "Then they said, in fact, there is an early feast of the Lord in Shiloh, which is north of Bethel." Bethel is south from here. "On the east side of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem. and south of the Lebonah. So Lebonah is a bit northern from here. This is the road heading up to Lebonah over there. Shechem. This is precisely the place, guys. Through scriptures, we know exactly where we are. The first time that we read about Shiloh is not Shiloh, the city, but kind of like a vision. In Genesis 49, it reads, verse 1, "And Jacob called his sons and said, Gather together, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last days." In verse 10 it says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be obedience of the people." In the time of the conquest, when they entered the land, Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel in this central place, in this holy place. And it reads in Joshua 18, from the beginning, "Now the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh, and set up the tabernacle of meeting there. And the land was subdued before them. But there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes which had not yet received their inheritance. Then Joshua said to the children of Israel, How long will you neglect to go and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers have given you? Pick out from among you 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them. They shall rise and go through the land, survey it according to their inheritance, and come back to me. And they shall divide it into 7 parts. Judah shall remain in their territory on the south, and the house of Joseph shall remain in their territory of the north. You shall therefore survey the land in 7 parts, and bring the survey here to me, that I may cast lots for you here before the Lord our God. But the Levites had no part among you, for the priesthood of the Lord in their inheritance. And Gad, Reuben, and half of the tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan on the east, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them." Then the men arose to go away from here. And Joshua charged those who went to survey the land, saying, "Go, walk through the land, survey it, and come through the land back to me, that I may cast lots for you here before the Lord in Shiloh." So the men went, passed through the land, and wrote the survey in the book in 7 parts by cities. And they came to Joshua at the camp in Shiloh. Then Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord. And then Joshua divided the land to the children of Israel according to their divisions. All of this happened here. From the year 2010, when Israeli archaeologists really sank their teeth into this site, we found an area over here that is carved in the rock. And the measurements of this area here, the length of it is about 150 feet. And the width of it about 75 feet, which is exactly the measurements that the Lord gave Moses to build the tabernacle. Folks, we got it. It's here. This is where the tabernacle laid, and the Ark of the Covenant inside it for 369 years. Here was the central of religion. This was the capital. This was the place where they all gathered and united as one. To understand the tabernacle, I made a video for you guys. Shalom friends, this is Erez. We're in Samaria, and here we found a replica of the tabernacle that existed while the tribes were roaming through the desert before they entered the promised land. So I thought it would be good to pay it a visit. In Exodus 25-31, the Lord tells Moses to build a place for his dwelling. He should take donations from the people to build it. That means good material. He tells him how to build the tabernacle. What we see is the outer court surrounding the main area, tent-like inside, which is known as the inner court, or the Eichal in Hebrew. The length of the outer court is 100 cubits, around 150 feet from north to south. The width is 50 cubits, around 75 feet from east to west. The inner court, 45 feet in length and 15 feet in width. The entrance is always from the east. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the tabernacle or we're talking about the temple. entrance always from the east. The material that was used to build the tabernacle was the material that the tribes brought with them from Egypt, and material that were found in the desert. The fabrics were mostly flax, and the 48 columns surrounding the outer court to hold the fabric were made from the acacia wood, that is of course a desert wood. The acacia columns were plated with silver and gold. The tribes donated so much, Moses even told them that it was far enough, no more. The size of this model is good, but it lacks a lot, such as the fabric and the proper columns, but I guess it's good enough. In the outer court, they would build the altar and the basin. In the holy inner court, the menorah, the incense altar, and the table showbread. The western inner part of the inner court was the holy area, known as the Holy of Holies, and that is where they would place the Ark of the Covenant. At the end of the book of Exodus, the tabernacle is built, and the dwelling of the Shekinah, the glory of God, lies in its holiness. The entrance to the outer court, the hall, was for everyone, for all the tribes. They would be allowed in and would gather to give sacrifice, offerings for the Lord. The ones who would engage in the act of serving the Lord would be the priest from the Levite tribe. There were the daily offerings, one in the morning and one in the evening, and the crowd could give them their offerings in between. They would hand them to the priest and he would offer it on their behalf. An Israelite could receive redemption from their sin only through the shedding of blood, through the ritual of sacrifice. The throat of the animal would be slit, and that all the blood would drain. The idea behind it is that the animal's blood contains its soul, and it must leave the body. There would be a ramp, not stairs leading up to the high altar. That's because it's not humble to reveal yourself before the Lord. People did not wear underwears back then in those days. It wasn't created yet. For the altar and the holy inner court, we find the basin. Only the priest would be allowed inside the holy inner court, and they would have to purify their hands and legs with water from the basin. The inner court would be divided into two. At the entrance there would be 3 vessels: the incense altar, the table showbread with 12 bread placed upon plates of gold, 12 for the number of tribes. The breads were for the priest. Every Shabbat, Sabbath, they would change them. The 7-branch menorah, made from solid gold, gave light. Fire in Judaism symbolizes light. 7 days of life in a week. The inner room was known as the Holy of Holies. Inside lay the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the 2 plates of laws, the 10 Commandments that Moses received from the Lord on Mount Sinai. You would also find inside the manna bread and Aaron's rod. In the Holy of Holies would also lie the glory of the Lord.
This being the central of religion, this being the capital of Israel more than 3,000 years ago, that meant that the tribes from all over the land would come and gather here at least 3 times a year in the high holidays of Pesach, Passover, the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, you guys know it as Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacle. Now the tribes had their own business. I mean, they had wars, they were losing land, gaining land, but they knew that in this time of the year they would have to come here to this central of religion to connect to God. They knew that they had to come here to give that offering for redemption, because only through the sacrifice would they receive it. When I come here, I could see it with my eyes. I mean, from the down south, from beyond the mountains, I could imagine the Benjamin tribe coming from beyond the mountains, entering this area. And behind them, Judah. From the valley of the Levona, the Dan tribe coming from the shoreline. Welcome, brothers. From the north, Menashe, Ephraim, Asher, Naphtali, Zebulun, all coming one after the other, gathering here as one nation. And from the east, the half of the Menashe tribe, Gad and Reuben, all here for one cause: unity. So, family, when the tribes came here and united and gathered, they would give the offerings for the Lord inside the tabernacle. And then they would take a portion of that meat and plates that they brought with them, ceramic plates, and they would gather upon the mountains all around here. Judah beside Benjamin, and Dan, and Menashe, and Ephraim, and all the tribes around. And after they would eat, they would break the plates here, not taking them with them, not taking the holiness with them, leaving it here. Now get this, archaeologists in our time, a few years ago, did surveys all around here, all upon the mountains, and they found these fragments of ceramic from more than 3,000 years ago. Hallelujah. Exciting. In 1 Samuel 1, it talks about a man called Elkanah who had two wives. One that could bear children, and one, Hannah, that he loved so much that could not. He would come here from Ephraim to give offerings to God, and he gave it to his wives and to his children, but to Hannah he gave double the portion because he loved her so. And Hannah came here, and she wept bitterly. And Eli, the priest, heard her crying, and heard her coming, entering this area of the tabernacle, and praying for the God of Israel. Now, praying was not instituted in Israel back then in the days. It wasn't so in the first and second temple as well, only later on. But the Lord heard her cry, and Eli told her that the Lord is good. The Lord is going to grant her, give her a child. Eventually it happened. Her son that was born was a priest called Samuel. It happened over here. And she promised God that if he'll grant her this wish, she would give her son to him. And that's exactly what happened. This boy, Samuel, that was born at the right age, he was given to God to serve him. And around here is where Samuel spent a lot of his time, with the high priest, Eli. Here, as it's written in 1 Samuel 3, here is where Samuel for the first time heard the Lord speaking to him, calling him 3 times, Samuel, Samuel, until he understood this is God. And it happened right over here. In 1 Samuel chapter 4, it talks about a battle between the tribes of Israel and the Philistines. Pagans coming from the west and settling upon the shoreline. We'll get to them later on. And the tribes wanted the Ark of the Covenant that was inside the tabernacle with them. This way they thought it would promise them victory. And they took it from here. And in the battle down below in the valley area, they lost. And the Philistines took the Ark with them. Later on it says that a man came back, later on in chapter 4, a man ran back here to tell the priest Eli what happened. We believe that's the first marathon runner, about 42 kilometers, yeah, up to here. And he told Eli that his sons were killed during the war and he fell in sorrow. But then he told them that the ark was taken by the Philistines. It happened here. And then Eli could not handle this. He fell back, broke his neck, and died. The Philistines came here and burned Shiloh to the ground, and that was it. That was the end of the dwelling of the tabernacle in Shiloh. Later on, the tabernacle was built in other areas, such as in Nov, such as in Gibeon, until eventually it settled or was built in Jerusalem. Not the tabernacle, but the temple and the Ark of the Covenant inside it. Folks, we'll end the teaching here at a view towards the north. We could see here a modern road, but it was also an ancient road passing through the valley area. In Israel, a lot of roads reaching from one area to another. You have the eastern one, western one, and the road heading upon the mountain. It's called our Father's Road. We read in scriptures that Yeshua, Jesus, often would reach from Jerusalem to Galilee or from Galilee to Jerusalem upon the valley area, below the mountains, but sometimes upon the mountains. For instance, when he left Jerusalem to Samaria and met the Samaritan lady by the well. Nearby, there's a site called Krayot. And nearby Krayot, there are ancient ruins and tombs from the Second Temple period, meaning from the time of Jesus, Yeshua. We have another Krayot on the Judean mountains, and that's very common here in Israel, having a city holding the same name, like Bethlehem on the Judean mountains, Bethlehem in the Galilee area. Some people believe that Judas, Ish Krayot, a man from Krayot, came from the Judean mountains, southern from Bethlehem near Arad, but others believe he came from here. I really don't know. It could be that he didn't come from Krayot at all. It could be that he came from a sector called Sikarim, and there was a bad translation concerning Judas. Anyway, what I can tell you, that there's a good chance that Jesus, Yeshua, heading up to the Galilee, or coming from the Galilee to Jerusalem, would pass along these valley areas, along these ancient roads, roaming through the land in Samaria.